Farmer. We're going to speak now to Stephen Reicher, who's Professor of Psychology at the University of St Andrews. He's also advised the Scottish and UK governments on COVID and served on a SAGE subcommittee on behavioural science. Professor Reicher, thank you very much for joining us. Not sure how many more times we'll be able to do this, but let's make the most of it tonight. Chaotic, said the Labour leader. How fair is that as an assessment of what's been announced?
Well, I think the problem is that what's happening in terms of taking away all the measures, and I think it's really important to use the word measures because the stress is often put on taking away restrictions, but what's happened today is as much taking away support and protection. So support for people to self-isolate, free tests so people have the ability to test themselves. That will inevitably lead to an increase in infections. Chris Vallance acknowledged that. And the problem is right now, levels of infection are extremely high. They're 1 in 20, as we heard in England, 1 in 25 in Scotland and Wales, 1 in 13 in Northern Ireland. So there's a real danger of increasing infections. That's the first problem. The second problem is the message that comes from saying to people, you don't even need to isolate to stay at home if you're infected, is that infections don't really matter. And that really undermines all measures to deal with the pandemic, including people getting boosted and vaccinated. And remember that nearly a third of people still don't have the booster. So that's the second problem. But I think the biggest problem of all is that if you take away support, then it means that only those who've got the means can do the things you ask of them. So if you take away the support, as was done for self-isolation, then if you've got the money and you've got the resources, yes, you can stay at home. But if you don't, if you're on a 0 hours contract or if you're in precarious employment, you have no choice. Your choice is taken away from you. You have to go to work. Or similarly, imagine this scenario. You want to go and see your granny. A family of 4 or 5 people want to go and see their granny. But if they don't have the money, if they're already choosing between heating and eating, they have to think very seriously, can they afford to go and see granny? Or are they prepared to go and see granny when they might be infected and therefore to be a risk to her? And in that situation, again, you're taking away choice from many people. So I think one of the problems today is that despite all the talk about freedom and all the talk about choice, yes, there's now more choice for those with resources, but there's less choice for those who are vulnerable and less choice for those without resources. And I think that's a fundamental problem because we always talked about building back better from the pandemic, learning. And one of the things we've learned is this has been a pandemic of inequalities. And what's happening at the moment, I think, rather than challenging and working against those inequalities, is increasing them. And that's building back worse.